Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming along. I think it's probably our record turnout so far, so that's very much appreciated. So we are the Pharma Multichannel Marketing Meetup group. Really catchy title. So I'm just going to introduce what the group is, who we are, why we're doing this. Essentially what we're trying to build is a little bit of a community to host these events, to educate, to try and push some new ideas, and ultimately get some feedback from everybody at the meetups, you know, between the meetups as well, via all the different channels that we've got going on. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah, really, just to say that you know, I want to just generate a bit more of a community feel. Hopefully, most of you signed up through the Meetup app. You know, you can communicate through that, share ideas. But equally, yeah, it's coming back to us with ideas of future meetups, topics you like to cover, topics you heard you'd like to recover, etc., and really get some feedback and sort of a bit of a collaboration going on.
Yep. So I'll introduce the people that are setting this up. Nick, who's had to shoot off. Nick is a thought leadership writer. Christine, over there. So Christine runs Salamandra, that are an animation studio. James as a CRM and CLM development company.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll tell you about it later. And myself, Long Live King. We build web applications, productivity tools, user engagement pieces. That's your lineup. I'm going to pass over to James, who's going to tell you all about the speakers we've got tonight and the great content. Thank you.
I got some notes because there's loads of stats here. I just want to introduce why we're doing. Let's talk health chatbots and voice and why they're related. So just in case you didn't know, a chatbot is a computer program which conducts a conversation via auditory or textual methods. Thank you, Google, for that definition. You've probably come across them on websites, messaging apps, and of course, voice-activated devices. So we're going to cover two topics tonight, as you can see. Chatbots with Kym, and who's there? And voice search with Charlie. Just a few stats. Message apps. So 1.75 billion people use messaging apps right now. That's 25% of the world's population. So, first stat. Got a lot of these. Chatbots. 63% of people surveyed in a survey once said that they would be willing to use a chatbot. But 75% of that, and that's important, would get creeped out if they thought the chatbot was trying to pretend to be human. I think that's a really important thing for us in pharma, where we're dealing with sensitive topics. Voice. So Google sold a voice-activated or home voice device over 1 per second in Q1 2018. More than 1 a second. Voice search. Gartner reckon it's going to be 30% of searches will be no-screen searches in 2022. And ComScore reckon 50% will be by voice. I'm not sure what the difference is there. I think it's the same thing, but between 30 to 50%, and I'm sure Charlie will talk more about that. Massive opportunities. 55% of homes worldwide will be equipped with smart search devices by 2022. So big opportunities for us, working out how we try and do it. But importantly, how do we do it for pharma? How do you do it in healthcare? How do we do it sensitively, etc.? So I thought the most important, the most interesting fact I found out here is 41% of voice users, or so voice search users, or active speakers, say it feels like talking to a friend. So I don't know how much value to put in that, but it's really interesting sort of take on it. And maybe where we could be thinking about here in the use of this is with maybe vulnerable patient groups, you know, who maybe don't want to or can't speak to a human advocate or a mentor. Non-health seekers, and what I mean by that, and used to be, we once built an app called Bloat Noises, specifically designed for the men's health charity to try and reach middle-aged men who don't go to their GPs, don't talk about health, not comfortable talking about health. And the target market for that was white van driver. Right, simply put, as someone who's not going to speak to their GP. Maybe voice, maybe chatbots as a way to reach those. And also embarrassing conditions, things that people aren't that comfortable, maybe men as well, talking to people about. And also conditions that maybe, and Kym's is a good point here, you need to access at difficult times, 24-hour coverage. If I remember rightly, one of the key things with yours is about accessing it at difficult times early in the morning. So what I hope from tonight, and that's what we hope from the whole meetup and why we do these things, is we learn from both in industry and Charlie's kind of out of industry, they've got some experience in health, how we can think about that for our particular industry and how we can come out of it with compliant, creative, interesting ideas that are better for our clients, our brands, and ultimately patients and doctors who are underneath that. So, now I'm going to hand over to Kym. Brief little, hopefully non-embarrassing intro for Kym. I first heard Kym at the 2018, what do they call it, Digital Works PM Society, and I was blown away by the talk on this chatbot. Not because of the technology, but because of the way that Kym saw this through, and her team, very keen, not just you, but your team, saw this through some difficult compliance issues. A chatbot in pharma, it seems like a really difficult fit. What I really like from this is by sticking with your vision and your goals, by bringing stakeholders in, you can get your challenging project through. So that's an inspirational part of this, but equally as inspirational is actually the real help that it gives to patients at a difficult time. So with no more ado, Kym. Yeah, there you go, that'll be it.
Great. So it's quite interesting when you talk about voice, actually. I won't talk about chatbots just yet, but I do have an Alexa in my house. And then I realised that I went and cooked at my stepdad's house for their dinner, made a big roast. And I realised I started saying, "Hi, Alexa," except they don't have an Alexa. So that's quite embarrassing. I don't know if you ever... I get a bit specific to it. So I wanted to try and introduce you a little bit to Norgine, because a lot of people don't know who Norgine are. So I'm Kym Jacks-Bryant. I'm the Global Digital Marketing Lead for Norgine. Now, we're a medium-sized pharma company. We occupy territories in Europe, Australia and New Zealand. Apparently, we think Australia is part of Europe, which the Australians don't like very much. And we tend to focus in kind of gastroenterology, but we tend to partner in drugs. So one of the big things that we do is we tend to partner a drug and then give ourselves about 6 weeks to launch. So that's our kind of a speed to market time for things. We're a relatively small company. There's about 1,000 employees over Europe, Australia and New Zealand. And we have most of our headquarter functions in the UK, but our headquarters is officially in Amsterdam to make us a European company, especially with Brexit. So I'm going to cover kind of a few different topics. One is why we decided to make a patient chatbot. One is kind of how we overcome some of those challenges, and it's quite interesting to hear how the most exciting thing is the compliance aspect of it, which I found quite amusing. But it did take us quite a while to get over these compliance hurdles, and that's been most of my career so far. And how we kind of accelerated the implementation, but I've been told since that other companies have done it a bit quicker, so I need to work on how quickly I do this. So one of the things, I'm going to go back to kind of our patients. So one of the products we have is Plim View. Now, it's a product that you take before you have a colonoscopy, and it's designed to clear you out the whole way through. Now, that's not a great experience. I wouldn't really want to be doing that on a regular basis, but it's really important because a lot of the people that are taking these bowel preps are doing it to see if they have cancer. Or they're doing it for a diagnostic purpose where they need to be cleaned so that the scope can see if there's anything untoward in their bowel. So it's really important that they take the bowel prep correctly. But when they go in to see a doctor who tells them about, you have to have a colonoscopy, what they're focusing on is what's going to happen, do I have cancer, will it hurt, and essentially kind of what's this box I've been given that I'm supposed to take before I appear at a doctor's where they're going to put a camera somewhere. But in reality, in the UK, the majority of bowel preparations are posted out to patients. They're not actually seeing a doctor before they have a colonoscopy. They may get, I don't know if you've seen kind of anyone over 55 gets a little test in the post, and they have to do a fecal sample and send it off. If that shows that there's anything kind of abnormal on there, they're invited for a colonoscopy, and they may not actually see anyone before they get to that hospital for that procedure. They're posted out a box of powder that they have to take at random times in the day. It's quite daunting, really. And this is a standard kind of schedule, so don't worry too much about the specifics, but there's 3 different dosing regimens depending on when your colonoscopy is, which you kind of know from the appointment letter. You've got 3 different things. You might be taking it before you go to bed and in the morning. You might be taking all in one day. It's quite complicated. And actually, a lot of people have to wake up at 3 a.m. to take their bowel prep, to have a lot of diarrhoea for a few hours before they go on to see their colonoscopy provider. Now, I don't know how many doctors' offices are open at 3 a.m. in the morning to answer any questions, but in reality, everyone turns to Google. Okay? Massive search, and there's over 94 million results now. So which ones do you generally trust? And that's kind of what we were talking to patients about, what's really important. We actually did a patient survey, and the results are about to come out, but it's about 60% don't have enough information from their doctor about their colonoscopy, and a lot of them turn to the internet. And when I looked at the Google search results, there are hundreds of thousands of searches of how to take my bowel prep, what's this box, and lots of different questions about it. So really, we looked at this and went, we think that there's a need to give people more information. People are turning to Google, but I did find one example where one individual told people to take a bath in the bowel prep instead of drinking it. So that's just an example of how Google's not always correct. So one of the things that I've been doing over the last year, I should have said actually at the start, so my appointment in the global digital marketing team as the lead was the first digital marketing appointment at Norgine, just about 2 years ago. We'd never had anyone doing digital marketing properly in there, so I started a bit of a campaign of how we could do digital a bit differently, how we could think that way. And in January they appointed a new director of digital transformation. So it's kind of working. So one of the things that we were doing at the time was presenting a lot of ideas of what you could do a little bit differently and kind of giving people a steer to think up something different. So one of the ideas that came out from one of these kind of demo days was, well, why don't we build a chatbot? So we did. So we have a patient website, and that patient website has Ava. She's called Ava. And she can answer questions 24/7, and she can answer a lot of questions about bowel preparation, Plim View specifically, but also about colonoscopy in general. And she's there to kind of just give that reassurance. It was interesting, you were talking about people don't like the fact they think it's not, they think it's a human, and I totally agree. We are actually trying to make it more obvious she's not human. We actually thought, naively, that the picture of an icon and an animation and the fact she's called Automated Virtual Assistant was enough, but actually it's not. People still ask if you're human, which is quite an interesting one. But we said chatbot, and now you actually defined it at the start. So James defined chatbot, but we had very similar questions when we discussed it internally. So obviously, when we're embarking on something completely new at Norgine, we got loads of different questions internally. This was the main one, a chatbot. A lot of people said, what's a chatbot? A lot of people assumed we'd have a live messaging service. And a lot of people say, I got a question quite a lot, who will man that chat? Are we going to have advisors working 24/7 to man that system? What about adverse events? And I'll kind of come back to that one. What if it gives you the wrong answer? And GDPR, which is my favourite phrase against every digital thing I ever do. What about GDPR? Okay, we don't collect any personal data officially. We don't in this. But still, GDPR is a big thing that everyone tells me is a problem every time I talk about anything. Now, this became an interesting topic, actually. At Norgine, we didn't have a digital project approval process, okay? I got given a form by IT when I said we've got a chatbot to launch. I walked into our brand planning, which is in front of all of our senior members of staff, and the Plim View brand manager presented, we want to do a chatbot by the end of 2019. Okay, so this is May last year, I think. In May, they said, right, we want to do a chatbot by the end of 2019. We're going to give ourselves a good amount of time to get through the approval process. It'd be great. Our COO said, well, why would you wait till then? Can't you do one in a couple of weeks or a month or so? So, not really. We ended up negotiating, so we had 6 months to launch. So we ended up launching the 20th of October, 2018. But that meant we suddenly had a very short, accelerated timeline. And with that, that meant we had to do the approval process very quickly. Now, because there is no digital approval process at Norgine, it was very difficult to find everyone that needed to be involved, every stakeholder that needs to be involved. I involved pharmacovigilance, I involved legal, I got medical involved, I had the kind of medical affairs kind of teams doing all the referencing ideas and all the writing. We had marketing, we had data guys, we had the BI guys. We had as many people as I could physically think of in the building. And still, we came to the point that we literally got a bit stuck. So we thought we had everyone, we had comms as well, randomly. But in reality, people kept popping up and going, well, what about us? IT suddenly wanted to get involved. It's a system, isn't it? Please, I need someone to define what a system is later, because I still don't understand from the IT definition of what they think a system is. But also quality got involved. Now, what they presented me with was a form to fill out for a risk assessment. And they gave me a book, about that big, of guidelines of how to fill out this risk assessment form. And the book was about good manufacturing process for digital systems. So the questions involved include, would this affect the temperature of our plant, our manufacturing plant? Would it affect the amount of ingredients into our thing? So all of these questions, which had no relevance to kind of the commercial side or the chatbot side. So it's quite interesting to try and find everyone in one company that needed to be involved to deal with this kind of compliance aspect. But in reality, I have a tendency to just say why. Well, why would we need to do this? What do we need to do? Why would we want to do this? And I got told we had to have a 6-month validation process from IT in order to get it live. Now, bear in mind the brand manager had a global conference in 2 weeks she wanted to launch at. So we were trying to fight that battle. But you know what? The easiest thing to solve was the adverse event reporting. I know that sounds really odd. But in reality, I think I'm extremely lucky because our PV, our head of pharmacovigilance, is actually quite excited by digital things because he's done a few different things. And what we decided to do is that every day we send a report of all of the questions that go through, and someone just checks through them. We outsource it, but every 24 hours someone reads through all those questions. And then if they need to, they report it. But in reality, we haven't had a single official adverse event because people aren't putting in the information that would class as a reportable adverse event, which is good. We aren't asking for that information, so a lot of people don't put it. One thing we are desperately trying to do, and I think this is a massive learning thing for us, is we are doing ongoing training with the bot. We took loads of questions from Google, everyone that, all questions that people put in about their bowel preps, And bear in mind, we have about 30 years experience in bowel preps in our organisation. We had all of the Google questions for all of the branded bowel preps that we knew. We had Answer the Public, which is one of the best sites I love for kind of keyword research. We use that for a lot of the questions around. We also had 30 years of experience of medical information questions, so we used those. And we thought we kind of had it nailed because we had loads of questions. But in reality, people ask strange things. Actually, my favourite one, to make you laugh, is, are you married? I didn't think that would be a question, but it is. But actually, people write big paragraphs and people write a whole prose about different things. So it's quite interesting to see. So we are sitting down. We're doing it on a quarterly basis, but I actually get the daily reports. So sometimes I go in and tweak it occasionally, as much as compliance allows. We're not changing any of the answers or anything. We're just changing kind of how it picks things up. But we do this on kind of a quarterly basis officially, adding new questions in, and it's working quite well. And the biggest thing that I found really interesting with the review is we're running review sessions, where we're running live Zinc reviews. We still use Zinc, where we have the reviewers in a room adding comments live, and then we change the comments in a break, and then we re-upload it and get them to certify it on the day. So that's working really well for us at the moment. Yeah. Oh, sorry, guys. Not on chatbots, but another one we've used that in is website review. So we've actually run kind of Scrum Agile website review, where we've reviewed pages in a session, gone away, changed them, bring them back to review, and that works quite well as well. So as I said, we basically had a very short timeline to do it. We did it in 6 months. Now that doesn't sound short for most tech people, I'm sorry. But in Pharma, I was amazed, because seeing as we'd never done a chatbot ever before, and we didn't have any of the real content or anything available, and we were doing the whole website at the same time, both patient and healthcare professional side. It was a global initiative, so we were doing kind of the global website under the UK OBPI. We managed to do all of that in 6 months, which I was quite pleased with. And you know what? That was mainly kind of trying to take people down the journey of digital is more dynamic, digital needs to be quicker, but also trying to rewrite the process at the same time. It's quite interesting to do. And do you know what? The biggest learning I had at that time was, don't assume people understand. So one of the questions I got quite a lot when I was saying was, who's going to man the chatbot? Do you know what? That came from IT. That came from the digital people in other kind of in the copywriting kind of side. It came from medical. It came from everywhere. But when we got to the kind of IT review and the quality review, people really didn't understand what we were trying to do and why we were trying to do this. But actually, when you explain why you want to do it, and you go back to the questions and why you want to do it, actually, people are happy to do it if it makes a difference. So when we're explaining why a patient might go through that made the difference. It got through quicker. Also, those group to face-to-face approvals work so much better. I think people become a little bit keyboard warrior behind Zinc in their office or their desk. I don't know if you've faced that quite a lot. You get comments of, well, why are you doing that? Actually, if you have them in a room, you can answer the question at the same time. I'm surprised we don't do that more. I have a tendency to ask, how can we, rather than can we? How can we? Or why? Why can't we do it that way? Why do we have to do it that side? Why do we have to check things every 24 hours? But actually asking them to come up with a solution seems to work better. And I've seen that on lots of different areas. We tend to hide behind compliance because we think it makes us safer, but it really doesn't. It just makes us less effective. And then I think for me, the largest kind of thing was actually pushing people to do things that they thought was scary. and trying to take them through that journey of why that patient might be finding it really scared. You know, they're scared at the end of the day. Why don't we make them feel better rather than just ourselves? And that was quite useful. We also had patients reviewing all of our questions and reviewing all our answers, and getting patients in front of the reviewers who were saying, no, you can't do this, to tell them why they wanted it, actually worked really well. And that was quite an interesting one for us. So I wanted to kind of open it to questions. And I'm happy to take questions now or later as well. I've added my LinkedIn QR, but any questions? Go on.
Yeah, how do patients find the book? How do they know it exists?
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. So I was going to do stats as well, and I forgot that one. So just a quick one. We've had over 800 people use the chatbot. I think it's since October. Yeah, it's about 850. Bearing in mind it's only in English, and it's only officially on our global website, or rest of the world, Europe website. We have a redirect for anyone to the US somewhere else. And obviously it's not in other languages just yet. Actually, we're just about to launch our first new language one next week, in Dutch. So things. Now, do you know what? We aren't promoting it at all.
But you aren't?
We are not promoting it at all. The only thing we did was we put it on a stand at a big congress, UEGW, for healthcare professionals in October. So all of our traffic at the moment is organic through search. When I've had...
You optimise that?
Yeah, I do a lot of SEO.
So you do this?
Yeah. I have a content management system I build in the SEO as and when into code if I need to, and tweak. So we are. Yeah, and that's what we want to do. But for us, we need each country are localising it to make it very specific to that country, so that they will then add it to that label. But we haven't got to that point. We had most of the countries said we can't possibly do this. So we proved we could, and we proved it was worth it before they would take it up. But yeah. Come.
Do you have any plans to deploy it to other platforms like Messenger, for example?
So at the moment, I'm trying to avoid Messenger until I work out what they're doing with WhatsApp. I'm not sure about that one particularly. The reason we've kind of kept it in one place is that we can, one, track it, and two, push people to that particular platform. We did look at apps actually for this particular thing, but we've done apps in the past for bowel preps because we've had a few different ones. People download it and delete it quite quickly, and if you're having a colonoscopy for bowel screening or bowel cancer screening, you tend to only need it for a couple of days. So it's a little bit of a throwaway app, and we tend to not get people to download it, so we haven't kind of decided that at the moment.
So how do you use this in the context of payers and physicians, and to show the value that you're adding to the kind of patient experience? Because clearly you have identified a unmet need for the patient, which is important. So this, when you go to tenders and what have you, I don't know how you're paid for, but when you go to tenders.
So we are using this as part of kind of formulary applications in the UK of we can kind of increase that compliance. Now, I must caveat, in the UK, the other brand we have is MoverPrep, and we are market leader in the UK. So we're basically taking our own market share in that sense. But we are selling it in as it's a better bowel prep, but with more patient support. So we are putting that through as part of that. We're also doing an SMS reminder service as part of this. So we do kind of personalised dosing schedules, reminders, and kind of PDFs to fridge, SMS messengers and email. So we're selling it as part of the package to healthcare professionals, and it's working quite well. And we haven't had any kind of comeback from that.
So if a bot, when fails to answer a question that is valid from the patient, do you triage it off the non-medical information? Or?
No, so it gives, well, kind of yes. So what it does is it gives you a, sorry, I can't answer this, I'm still learning, I'm a robot, answer. And then it gives you a list of all of the phone numbers for all of medical information across the world, and most of those are 24-hour lines, or any that we run are 24 hours.
But MIU can't see the conversation because you can't identify that person, is that correct?
Yeah, we don't. We decide not to.
So when a person rings up, you don't know that they're dealing with unless they tell you?
No, not unless they tell you. Yeah. And also it's got an email and it's also got kind of links to other stuff if they need it as well.
Sorry.
That's right.
What platform did you use to build for?
So we built Basic from scratch with developers, but we did use some Bing kind of language view underneath, it's a natural language processor underneath, but from scratch.
Why did you build it from scratch rather than SaaS tools available?
We looked at kind of a mix, but we kind of thought we'd do as a kind of a pilot at the moment. We did ask IT to look at multiple tools, but it freaked them out a bit too much. So we decided to do it for this one, but I have actually looked at some kind of other SaaS tools that we can use actually internally, because we're looking at doing chatbots for IT support, my digital marketing support, because I should have said my team we have 2 individuals in the digital marketing globally. So we're looking at doing digital marketing support via chatbot, but also our digital governance through chatbot, but option chatbot, so not free text, but option based, to take you down kind of the triage of who you need to speak to. So one of the things that we've done since this is redesign how we do digital approval for kind of these bigger, different projects with the digital governance group, and how we kind of triage who you need to speak to. So we've done that sort of thing from
It's
that.
safer to play inside and get the experience there than take it outside.
Yeah, I think so. I think there was quite a lot of reluctance to other people externally kind of owning that and maybe using it or pushing it somewhere else.
Quick question around medical devices. I mean, did you go through the process of making sure that it's not a medical device?
Yeah, so this one is only answering stuff from the pill SMPC. It is not giving you any different information for taking your dose at different times or changing any of your treatment regimen. And we did go through the kind of flowchart from the government for that. Although Norgine, we're not shying away from that. We're looking at how to build apps into medical devices anyway. So we've got quite a lot of understanding of where it crosses that line. So we've done that before.
So this is for your brand, and particularly how to take your brand with all the product with all the information from the pill, etc. How do you handle people coming in asking either generic questions or questions about other brands? Is that just a quick point out?
Yeah, it is a point out. We do have some colonoscopy questions, so general kind of what's going to happen, will it hurt, etc. So we do have those in there, but it's all branded. Everything, when you're going in, you're saying you're a prescribed patient. So yeah, certain countries have logins, not login systems, but batch code, QR code systems, serialization code systems, but UK don't need to, for instance.
Did you have any feedback from the patients about the user experience? Do they enjoy these? Are they frustrated?
So we had a patient panel test it before it went live. So look through all the questions, have a go and see how it is. And they call themselves experienced colonoscopists, the ones that have gone through multiple 10 or so colonoscopies. Yeah. So they looked at all of the stuff beforehand, and then we're looking at building in was this helpful? But that's kind of the next thing for us.
Have you thought about closing the loop so you automate some of the learning, so you use natural language processing to assess it so that you're presented with your Q&A, which you then approve?
I'd love to. It freaked everyone out when I was discussing that, because we did talk about learning and kind of changing or providing.
Alexa skill and that kind of thing.
Yeah, but it kind of
Okay.
we'll get there. We'll try.
Yeah.
Go on, James is going to kick me off in a sec.
No,
You right?
carry on.
Apart from the compliance argument, how did you sell this in over like a patient information section on the website to like seniors?
Do you know what? I actually used it as an example of it's officially a fancy FAQ search.
Yeah.
So I did actually use that example on a multiple occasion to get over compliance.
Yeah.
Actually, we just kind of used it as, well, how do you find information on the website? How are people really using it? What they're doing is turning to Google. They're not coming to our site to try and find information. And we just kind of went, we think it's a better option. Let's try it, pilot it. But yeah, after the initial stress of it's a chatbot, actually people were quite brought into the idea.
Are patients concerned about what's going to happen with that information? I mean, it's not like searching for property or so, it's like very personal, confidential information.
So the majority of questions they're asking are not real personal questions, if that makes sense. They're asking, when will this work? when do I need to take a dose? How much water do I need to mix with it? Can I drink alcohol? Which is the biggest one of the biggest ones. Actually, when will it work? Which is quite interesting. We changed some of our patient information because of that. But also, can I drink alcohol? Which I find interesting. They're not necessarily going, I might have cancer, what do you think? Questions. They are asking very transactional ones, and we haven't seen anyone kind of worry about that. People that are worried, I suppose, won't use it. We tend to have quite a high percentage that use the chatbot.
I am going to end it now because we can do some questions at the end if needs be. But round of applause, Kym.